In this final episode, and in the company of the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire, we are going to look at the major works that have been carried out at Chatsworth in the 20th and 21st centuries. We will also spend some time with Jane Marriott, Director of the Chatsworth House Trust. So, Duke, what's your earliest memories of Chatsworth?
Well, I grew up in Enza with my parents and my sister. And then in about sort of when I was 10 or 11 in the mid-50s, I used to come here more and more in the holidays, school holidays, with my mother because my parents had decided to move in because they got to keep the house going. And although they were paying a lot of death duty tax, they wanted to let Enza House where we were living. So my mother had a tiny little budget and she had to do it more or less all herself. All the decorating and all reorganising the furniture, which had been installed really since before the war, when the school came at very short notice. So I spent hours with her turning the lights on and off, so I knew where all the lights were. And she did an amazing job. She completely redid, and she put 16 bathrooms in or something like that. As I say, on a very small budget. And it was new services, new everything, because the house had been empty, except for the school since the late 30s, and not lived in very much even then, and very little work done. My grandparents moved in for 6 months only, so they didn't really get on with it. And so 50 years later, when we came, all the services and everything that my parents had put in the 50s had done over 50 years, and they'd done really well, but they did need to be completely redone. And that was great, because it meant, because we had to dig them all out and make a mess, we then had to put it back new.
Yes, and also the water tanks were in the attics, and the water, if there was a leak
or a fire,
there was a real problem. And sometimes, and when we saw water pouring down the silk walls, we thought, no, come on, it's time to do something about it. And it snowballed, and we realised that then we needed to do the electrics. And so the plumbing and the electrics was the thing that really got us started. And the redecorating of the private side of the house.
And a lot of the visitor side to improve the visitor route. The creation of the North Sketch Gallery before we decided to make it a ceramic gallery to make the route easier so they didn't go down the very steep west stairs, which visitors had to do before. So a lot of improvements to our part of the house and to the visitor part of the house, and clean all the stone and mend a lot of the stone, and to reopen a quarry, which had been the quarry for the first Duke's house and the quarry for the 6th Duke's wing, and we had to reopen it. That took 2 years to get planning permission, so it wasn't a quick thing. But I'm really glad we did, because all the stone matches absolutely perfectly.
Yes, I think overall it took 10 years.
And this is what we call the master plan, isn't it?
Master plan.
Yeah, which was probably the largest building work that's been done here since the 6th Duke's time, in terms of, you know.
You'll have seen those photographs of all the white sheet over the scaffolding.
Yes.
And it was, do you remember a little schoolboy?
Yes, he said, what's it like living in a sugar cube?
And the answer was extremely dark.
The whole of the main part of the house was surrounded by scaffolding.
And that was about 2 years, wasn't it?
Yes.
So we lived in the dark. And we moved to different bits of the house. We lived in the attics for quite a long time, which was great because we got to know the house even better.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we could see what it was like. And I don't regret any of it.
It was. We'd already taken out the lift, which was perhaps a mistake. So it was 101 steps to get to the attic.
So you didn't want to leave these behind?
No.
Or have another pair downstairs. But it was great, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was fascinating. And working with the design team was such an eye-opener. Peter Inskip was the architect. David Milonaric was the interior decorator. Jonathan Bourne was the furniture expert, his knowledge was unbelievable.
So, as part of the master plan process, it sounds like you both found a lot about the history and reconstruction, as well as making this place into your own home.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
So we pored over the 6th Duke's handbook, which is very detailed, and my great grandmother, Evie Duchess. She wrote a similar sort of letter to her future daughter-in-law. And then Francis Thompson, who was the librarian during and after the war, wrote a history of Chatsworth, which is really a great record. And then my mother wrote a wonderful book called The House, saying what she'd done. So with those 4 sources and more, we were able to see how things had been, because one of the things that we decided early on was to put back the staterooms to as near as we could to what they were when the first Duke built them and decorated them. My mother had taken a different, perfectly reasonable view, was that historic houses, like any house, is a sort of archaeological history of generations. So there's something from everybody's generation put down and left there for years. And then, oh, well, we can't move that because that was Duchess Evie's book. So, you know, and my mother strongly supported that philosophy. And so the staterooms had things of all different dates. And that could easily be put back because we photographed everything before and afterwards. And just the way we did it was, we didn't really understand about the staterooms. We assumed that a lot of visitors didn't understand about them. And so we did it in a way to make it a bit easier to understand.
Mm-hmm. As well as the house, of course, the landscape and the gardens that surround it are so important, they're so connected. Could you tell us a little bit about how you've approached the garden and the work that you've undertaken there?
When we first arrived, we started fiddling around ourselves and
Moving a primrose at a time.
yes, and we didn't get anywhere very far. So we suddenly realised we needed a garden designer, and we approached different people, and then we decided on Tom Stuart Smith.
And Dan Pearson.
And Dan Pearson as well, who's done some of the garden. Between them, they've done different bits.
But I think that before that, if you remember, way back when we started, one of the things we had to do in the house and in the garden and in the park was to find out the actual history. There was a tremendous lot of myth of this and this and this and that. And so there was reports written about the park and the garden and its place, its importance historically, and who'd done what, when, and why, and so that if we were going to change something, at least we knew why it was there before. And I think that was incredibly important, and that was something we learnt really from Peter Inskip, the architect, who wouldn't do anything in the house unless he knew what had gone before, who had changed it. And apart from anything else, the planners wouldn't have allowed us to do it because it's a necessary thing. And so we learnt a tremendous lot about the history of outside as well as inside. Mm-hmm. And I think that's easily the most important message to get across. You know, you must know why something was there before you move it. By all means move it. That's heaven. It's the best fun. But you need to know why and record it, and ideally be able to put it back.
And when we first came, we had exhibitions each year sponsored by Sotheby's, and they were modern sculpture.
Out of doors.
Out of door. In the garden, and that was a very strange feeling for people who came regularly. They didn't like it, and we had quite a few grumbles about what we were doing, and but then we found we had a different audience. We had younger people came to look and were interested and excited about the exhibitions, and we had them for 10
years, and there's usually between 25 and 40 pieces of outdoor sculpture. It was absolutely thrilling. We had them there for, well, it was officially 2 months, but by the time they'd been put in and taken out, it was more like 4. And the first year, like you said, people were horrified. Mm-hmm. I think we had hardly moved in. We were unknown, really, an unknown quantity. And I think a lot of people thought it was permanent. There was a great big Robert Indiana Love sculpture on the middle of the Cascade, which was fantastic. But people thought it was going to be there forever. And I think that would have been disappointing. And they were right to complain. But once people had got the hang of the fact that it was just a temporary thing, so you have Robert Indiana for 2 or 3 months and then away back to the old Cascade. Then people got behind it a bit more. And so we learnt a little bit, you know, change is quite a tense thing. If it's your idea, it's bound to be brilliant, but other people's ideas are not always quite so good. And so we need to persuade people to have confidence and to say, we're listening. And we did have some quite interesting conversations with people who've been coming here for 40 years. And very much it was part of their lives, and that's something which is so wonderful about Chatsworth. People rely on it for their quiet enjoyment. And if it was a great big lump of orange steel, not quiet enjoyment at all. It's challenging.
So it's always a balance.
It is a
to be
balance.
struck.
Yeah. They haven't happened for a year or two now, but I hope one day we'll do something similar or bigger or better, or the next generation will.
So, as well as the artworks that were placed in the garden, you've also instigated some major changes in terms of the plants that we find there as well.
Yes, very much so. There was a whole area of 15 acres that was like a wilderness. I mean, nothing had been done. And there were a lot of wartime seedlings, what we called, because of having had 2 world wars. Nothing had happened. And so we decided that we wanted to open it all up. And so we asked Tom Stewart Smith for a plan of what he thought he could do. And we wanted to have views through down to the park so that we could see the park through the trees. So we took down quite a few trees, but we planted a lot of trees and plants. We planted over 150 trees. And
we haven't finished yet either.
No, you're quite right. But he divided it up into 3 glades, and that's the glades you can see from the top looking down. You can see the view through, and 2 of them look down onto the maze, which is very attractive because you look at the maze from above. And we planted thousands and thousands of plants, and even through lockdown we were still trying to plant, and we only had 5 gardeners working during the lockdown. And so as a family we were all set to work on planting. It's a very satisfying project because these 3 glades are all different, and they're different colouring, and all throughout the whole year they look different. And then at the far end there's a meadow which has been planted as a
Well, it was sown actually, wasn't it?
Yes, it was sown by hand.
The broadcast, yeah.
Yes, Professor James Hitchmer, and he did all the wildflowers at the Olympics when they were in London. And so, as he lives in Sheffield, we thought, let's ask a local person to help.
He's also probably the best.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes, yeah. Just saying. And so he's come, and he, as you say, he planted them by hand like this. It was great fun to watch him do.
He mixed all the seed. The seed came, and it cost a fortune. Seed came in a shoebox, and we thought, that's really not very much seed, but of course a lot of them are absolutely tiny. And he'd worked out exactly what the percentage would germinate, and to how many you needed of each of the many different, mostly wildflowers. And then he mixed it with sawdust.
With sawdust, yes.
In a great big wheelbarrow, so a little bit of the shoebox was emptied and masses of sawdust, all mixed up like making bread, and then put into bags and broadcast on the. And it looked terrible until about a month ago, didn't it?
Yes.
A lot of empty spaces and all. And he's been coming every week or every fortnight with Steve Porter, our head gardener, and the team. And I must say now it's beginning to look wonderful.
And next year it'll look even
and they
more.
did say, James said, and
Steve.
And Tom Stewart Smith said, don't look at it for a year, but of course you can't not. So that's a thrilling new thing. There's never been anything like that at Chatsworth before. And so we're really excited about that. So that's made a big impact in the garden. Lots more paths, lots more seats, lots more places for people to get into a quieter place.
More benches to sit on, to look at the views.
Yeah, so it's good.
And also another part of the garden that you've transformed as well is the trout stream, and working with Dan Pearson there to create that new area.
Yes, that was his idea. He wanted to take it to Chelsea as a garden at Chelsea.
Sort of inspired by Chatsworth.
Yes, he arranged to have some of those rocks that we have in the rock garden were taken down for the Chelsea Flower Show. I think there were 7 articulated lorries with these huge rocks went down to Chelsea, and it was a great success, and it won the Best in Show. So,
and it wasn't destroyed. Nearly all the plant material and the rocks came back to Chatsworth, and although it's not the same as it looked in Chelsea, it's spread over a bigger area. But a lot of the plants are the same, so there was not much waste.
No.
So we know that you're moving out of the house in the next few years. What will be your feelings as you leave Chatsworth?
Well, I think most of all that we are going to leave Chatsworth in the best condition that we possibly could have done. Over the 16 years that we've lived here, I mean, the first 10 years was the master plan. And during that time, we found the best craftsmen for each job that needed doing. And Peter Inskip was particularly good. He knew where to find them. And the masons particularly were very skilled. And watching them working was amazing. And they used a scalpel to do the pointing. And to me, I couldn't believe it, anything that they were taking so much trouble to get everything particularly right. And the drain pipes are stone heads of larn heads, and I mean there's no outside drain pipe down to the ground, so the water from the roof used to come through these, or still does come through these larn heads. And one of the masons was cleaning the teeth of the larn, and so he was nicknamed the dentist. And and they were really friendly, and they were thrilled to be working on a beautiful house like Chatsworth. And we now feel that we have done our very best to make Chatsworth secure for the next 100 or 200 years in its the stonework and the services. And the services.
Yeah, they'll last for probably, I hope, another 40 or 50 years.
At least, I hope.
Yeah.
I hope.
But there's always a long list, a pipeline of more work to be done. My parents did a lot, and we've done a bit more, and there's still work to do, but it is a place which is now enjoyed. Well, it has been enjoyed since my parents really got going with the opening to visitors. It's enjoyed by hundreds of thousands of people every year from all over the world, and we're increasing the amount of attention to interpretation and education. So I think there were 22,000 children came for organised visits before the pandemic, and I know that William and Laura will want to increase that and make it a really better experience. There's more in the education team. That's something which we can explain, Chatsworth, why it's still relevant. Let people even just walk across a grass field, which a lot of children don't have an opportunity to do. There's so many exciting things to look forward to, and we've had a lot of fun, and they'll have a lot of fun too, and that's not the only thing that matters, but it helps.
Hello, I'm Jane Marriott. I'm Director of Chatsworth House Trust, which is the charity set up in 1981 to look after this incredible place. The house, the gardens, the art collections, and over 1,800 acres of parkland. Chatsworth is so much more than a house. It is a place of community. The community, of course, of people who work here, but also the community of people who live in the villages around us, and also the community of visitors who come and join us every single year. It's also a place of creativity, and as you will have seen through the films, we have worked over 500 years with some of the most impressive garden designers, architects and artists, and we continue to do so today. It is very important to us that we demonstrate that this is a living house that continues to evolve, and so we invite artists and architects and designers to continue to be inspired by Chatsworth, by the collections we have here. It's also, of course, a house that in the 21st century has to adapt, and in welcoming over 620,000 visitors, it is also a place that you can shop you can learn more about the stories, but behind the scenes there are offices, there are also conservation workshops, and the house needs to work very hard in order to do everything that we want to as a charity. Conservation in particular is an ongoing challenge. Every single penny that visitors spend with us, that supporters give to us, gets reinvested into the charity and what we do in terms of our learning programme, our exhibitions, but also our conservation. The house went under an incredible master plan which finished just around a decade ago, and since then we've started to revisit all of the historic structures out into the landscape, and it is very clear that we need to continue to invest in those, and we need support in order to make that possible. So I'd like to particularly thank the National Lottery Heritage Fund. They have enabled us to tackle one of our biggest projects at the moment, which is the Cascade. And the Cascade, as you will have seen in previous episodes, is this incredible water feature that works its way through the gardens. But it is also an opportunity for us to tell the story of water at Chatsworth and how it starts up at the moors, comes through these incredible water features, goes into the fountains and out into the River Derwent, and of course then starts all over again. We get the chance to talk about feats of engineering and how the Cascade looks so effortless, but of course is anything but when you look behind the scenes at just how clever that design was. It also gives us the chance to tell stories of social history, evolving garden designs, or how these garden designs reflected the status of the family and what they were wanting to say and portray to society of the time. This storytelling is really important to us, the chance to deepen our engagement with our audience, to make it more than a social visit, as beautiful as a social visit is, but to really look at how we can enrich people's lives, to help people reconnect with nature, reconnect with our own history, our own heritage, but also, of course, reconnect with each other. And that is our purpose, to use this incredible house and collections, grounds and gardens to do so long into the future. But I'm aware, of course, that some of you watching this won't have the chance necessarily to come here to Chatsworth. And so in our ambition to welcome the world, we'll continue to create these wonderful programmes and films to share with everyone, to create content that we can share online. And we're continuing to develop our loan programme so that we can take our collections out around the world to share with people who can't come here. So thank you very much for watching these films. I really hope you've enjoyed them and an insight to this incredible place, Chatsworth.